Hello again, and as I, Ricardo Ray. Today on this lesson, I'm going to be discussing the assessment in the classroom. Basically, I want to see what I want to know, I want to tell you guys what I would do to see what my students learned in the classroom for the lesson that I had planned. I want to see how many I want to just this slideshow presentation, excuse me, will go on to discuss what I would do to see what my students learned. I've seen so many teachers in my life that just like yap on and just don't let the students talk what's important to the lesson, like not getting their own thoughts and process, not having like a fluid conversation with teacher and student. While some teachers would just like keep it like that, as just keeping the way it is of just them talking about designs. You don't really know what they're thinking about. Sure, they'd be looking at you at the board, but they can just be in their own head doing whatever, thinking about other stuff. So this assessment is what I would do, is what I would make to show what my student to tell me if my students learned anything. So what's my objective? I want my students to know the key events of during the build up and events of World War II. This is just going to be one of many. So my last 20-minute lesson was just about World War II, so I might as well just keep it the same. This is my objective. I know the professor wanted to see an objective, so here's the actual assessment that I would do. It's going to be one page. I would like to make it one page, double sided. So my first question is basically here's the directions. Part one, circle the correct answer. I'm not going to make this as a test. It may look like a test format, but that's what I'm most used to of seeing paper like this. Maybe on sometimes I would do it as a class, right? I would hand this out to all my students and we either discuss it as a class or they can do it independently. This shouldn't take more than like 10 minutes to do. Maybe at the end, maybe 10 minutes before the end of class or 5 minutes before the end of class, I would hand this out and just tell me what you learned. And it's not going to be graded. I just want them to see what they learned. And if most of them answer poorly, then I guess I have to make it graded because if they're not learning about it, if they're not learning about anything, I need to like challenge I need to not really challenge them. I don't think is the correct word, but I basically have to like, hey, you got to pay attention. And if you're just circling random stuff, you're not really retaining the information. How do I know I'm doing a good job as a teacher? So part one is just two multiple choice answers. How did America get into the Depression, and what are the Axis powers? I made it so I would have an answer sheet. Of course, every teacher has an answer sheet. But this is part one. Part two, I'm going to make it short answer. Now, I've neglected to mention that in part one, you can see it's bolded. And now I specifically made it 14 size font bolded. This is what I was talking about in my commendations video. That some classmates I was with in high school had accommodations where they needed to have bigger font and that being bolded. So I thought because it's easier for me to see in my own personal time, I don't need it in college. I don't think Adelphi has that accommodation, but too late now. I'm in my senior year. That's why I wanted to make it bolded and a bit bigger font instead of the 12-point font because Times New Roman 12 is just really small. Part two is going to be short answer. I put it in parentheses, points won't be removed for grammar and spelling because, again, it's not a test. But if I want to make it graded, I just have to tell them that, like, grammar and spelling don't really matter as long as I could read it. And if it's so poorly done, which I don't think would happen, but you may never know. You may never know. I would want to get the student one on one, just so they can run me through like, hey, can you explain this? You just explain this to me so I can understand what you're writing. I don't expect them to write the whole box, but however, I would say I would hope that they write the whole box, use the whole lines in an answer. I say short sentences to explain Hoovervilles because there's so much things to do about Hoovervilles. Like, why were they created? How did they get their name? Where were they most of the time? What were they made of? Stuff like that I would want them to write down in the short answer. Question number 4 is where we get an actual map here. Now, explain this map represents. I would use this map a lot of times in my classroom, and I used the same map for my 20-minute presentation too. This map represents the Normandy invasion of World War II. So they can explain to me what this map represents in a few short sentences of like, this map represents Normandy. And then they go on to explain what the invasion of Normandy was. Again, for the sake of like the shortening the page, I just shorten the lines, but I expect them to write a bit more if they have to like use the blank side over there, which I don't mind them doing. I hope they use the blank side right over here. The next one is the final one is what do you think this image represents? Now, from what you're seeing is a bit small. Well, what I'm seeing right now is a bit small, but the image will enhance bigger. It shows Hitler stabbing Stalin in the back. Now, this image is representing how Hitler stabbed Stalin in the back, like portrayed him in making so that he invaded Russia during the winter. Like I said, I want them to explain what they wrote, what I want them to explain what this image means. And again, if we were to do this in the class, if we were to do this as a group, I don't expect them to at the bottom here when you're finished, place it on my desk, because I would either go 2 routes. One, we do it as a class, we do it together, or number 2, and sometimes 50-50 split depending how I'm feeling. They would do it silently and independently for the last 10 or 5 minutes of class. This would just be a worksheet. This is what I come up with. It isn't a lot, and I want them to get the main gist of the lesson. When I'm a teacher, I would try to do different things, but as of right now, I think this little worksheet that I have written up and sectioned it off into screenshots could be good so far. And if it doesn't work out, I would have to evolve as a teacher to be like, how would I make this better? How would I do this better? Because either my students don't retain any information, and then I would have, and if they don't, and just write and circle random answers, then I would have to be like, I'm making this graded. And it wouldn't cost a lot of points. It's not going to be like 10%, just maybe a point or 2. Maybe just make it extra credit. Again, still a novice. I don't think I would actually do that when I'm older and graduated. But again, I think this little worksheet can help us out and help my class out. Just gather information. And if they want to keep it home, they can keep it home. I think this also is a great study option for them to learn in case we have a test or a quiz coming up. That we would have like multiple of these ones after each lesson. Of course, I made it only 5 because I just wanted to just be like not make them a lot. But I think it would slowly increase the amount. I think I would slowly increase the amount of questions within each lesson, just so they can retain more of the information. And yeah, that is my assessment, and I hope you guys have a good day. Bye-bye.